Here's a quick video on troubleshooting and hopefully fixing the AO Smith 350. I walked by and noticed there was an error message on screen saying that it couldn't return home. Then I opened where the salt goes and it's full of water, which is not typical. Shouldn't have that much water in there. I restarted it, unplugged it, plugged it back in, and then tried to return back to the home position of the valves and started making this terrible clicking noise. Alright, I plugged it in. Hopefully you can see that. So I called AO Smith and they said it's the drive assembly, which I'll show you in a minute, but basically it's the electric motor that spins the valves to control which way the water's flowing. So they sent me instructions, which I'll put a link to, and hopefully that link never dies. And hopefully this actually fixes it. I'm not entirely positive. Instructions, things you need: Phillips screwdrivers, 1/4 inch socket, and some lubrication. First thing you want to do before opening up any piping is obviously to valve off your pressure tank so you don't have any pressure on your water. If you don't have a valve, then you're going to have to turn off your well pump and then just drain down your entire pressure tank. First up is sliding the controller off, which is to the right, away from the bypass. Next we're going to remove the 2 Phillips screws here and one below. Pop off this motor. With your motor unscrewed and pulled off, next we're going to go and unscrew the 2 Phillips screwdrivers on the line going into your brine tank. Alright, got that valve off. Next we're going to remove this 1/4 inch nut and pop off this magnetic disc. Next we're going to move these 2 screws near the out. Alright, the instructions, at least at the time of this video, tell you to remove the left front screws, but then the picture points to these screws in the back. It's definitely these screws because these go all the way across and screw into here, and we're trying to actually pull off this drive assembly. So maybe by the time you watch this video their instructions are fixed. Alright, those screws are loosened up. They're super long, but they're out of the drive assembly, which now we can hopefully pop it out. So playing around with the old drive assembly, I can see where it was getting stuck. So the electric motor is spinning this gear, which is spinning another gear, which is going along in a rack and pinion setup. So as the motor spins this gear, it moves the valve assembly in and out, and it all moves free except for right at the end here, which kind of clicks into place. But I can see the gearing is all ground up and marred. So this is definitely where it was getting stuck and couldn't return to the home position. I'm guessing obviously it was seeing that based on the magnetic target wheel attached to this shaft. I got the drive assembly unwrapped. Here's the code for it. Definitely don't just go yanking on this, although it's like pretty silly saran wrap basically. This thing's a little flimsy, especially here, so definitely want to cut it out. So the new drive assembly comes with a packet of 2 O-rings and screws. Obviously you just look at the old one. We have O-ring there and O-ring there, so just throw the new ones onto the new drive assembly. And these screws, they don't give you specific instructions, but they're the same screws that go on the electric motor that we took off, so I guess we can replace those. And we're just going to assemble it in the same steps but in reverse. One thing I didn't mention is that although the instructions say you have to use old parts, this drive assembly did come with a lot of these same parts, target wheel and the brine valve. Putting the shorter screws on the right side of the drive assembly there. I got the long screws, which have these little plastic covers on them that go all the way across and into the drive assembly. I will say I would recommend to tighten these one at a time and go slow, because you want this whole drive assembly to slowly uniformly pull in so that O-ring seats nicely. So since we're going to just pop this hose off here instead of undoing the new one, you just slide off these red clips. Alright, now that the red clip is out, you can squeeze on the white piece here with your fingers and get it nice and flush. and then pull in the hose. Then obviously slide in the hose to the quick disconnect. Mine, you can actually see a white mark where it used to be inserted. So make sure you fully insert it. Pull it out a little bit to show the gap for this red clip, which will secure it on. So the next step is to put on your electric motor. I put on the first screw there. If you didn't unplug your controller, make sure they're not tangled up, otherwise you'll have to unplug them. And then right now I'm planning to rock this onto the lower screw and hopefully engage the gears. So we got the motor screwed on. A couple things I want to say is A, definitely make sure your screws are nice and tight and flush, flat on the bottom there. Otherwise you will have a decent amount of play in your motor, which will let the drive gear and the plastic gear rock around, which will probably cause the same problem that we had before where this gear is stripped off. Also, these are self-tapping screws, so this plastic piece wasn't threaded originally. So as I tightened it, it's cutting into the plastic, so obviously it's kind of hard to do. So while you're doing it, you have to like hold onto this plastic piece over here, you know, don't grab onto this, but here, and then push down on it with your screwdriver and screw it in. And definitely keep everything nice and supported and make sure they're nice and tight. Last step is to slide on the controller, so you can see the little clips that we slid off, and then they just slide onto here. So come from the right and pull it over. All right, the cover you just latch, you know, drop it on, get it to grab on the front, and then push down the back. All right, cover's on, it's plugged in. It's going home, and it's not making terrible noises so far. And we're home. So hopefully that fixes everything. I'll keep you updated.